Welcome everyone to tonight's executive leadership call. For those of you that are just joining us for the first time, a big warm welcome. For those of you that do not know me, I am Corey Beagley. I'm your host for tonight's call, and I'm honored to have a special guest, the one and only Chuck Funky, our wonderful CEO. Guys, one of my favorite parts of this industry is the opportunity to become, to work on our personal development, try to do a little bit better every day. And I'm so grateful for this call. And that's really what it's all about tonight, is to learn a new principle and see how we can not only increase our effectiveness as business owners and building our business, but even more importantly, just us as human beings and develop our relationships with others and those around us. So that's my hope tonight, that you'll be able to grasp one thing, one principle, and apply that to your lives and see a difference, not only again from your business, but also your personal lives. Before we jump into it, I do have a few announcements that I want to get out of the way. First and foremost, for those of you that have already participated in this incredible promotion, or if you're hearing it for the first time, this promotion, the Give the Gift of ASEA promotion, is going on now. And in fact, we have just over a week and a half. It ends next Friday, so a week from this Friday. And what I love about this promotion is it's not only about volume and helping you build your business, but it's about sharing ASEA, and not only sharing the product, but sharing the culture, sharing the ASEA opportunity, whether that's financial or health opportunity, whatever it may be. So if you don't know about this promotion, it's quite simple. If you buy 2 cases of ASEA Redox, you're going to get 2 tubes of RENU 28 and 6 sample tubes of RENU 28 for free. You can also purchase 2 cases of the Redox pouches or 2 cases of RENU 28 and get the exact same gift for free. So any one of these 3 special holiday bundles gives you the opportunity to share those merry molecules with others. And so this promotion again ends next Friday. And like I said, take advantage of it. You know, buying 2 cases gets you an opportunity to get nearly $100 worth of free product. And then again, you can share that with others. You can build incentives with your team, or just give it away and thank those that are close to you. So again, guys, take advantage of this promotion. It's been incredibly successful so far. In just 2 weeks, we've done over 400,000 volume. And so like I said, it's going to be short-lived. We have just a week and a half remaining until next Friday. And then keeping these announcements short and sweet, we would like to extend an invitation to join us in a couple of weeks from today. On the 3rd of December, we're going to have the In Touch call with Karen Riley. And again, that is 7 p.m. Mountain Time. So guys, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, turn some time over to Chuck. But before I give him the time, and I've had the chance to introduce him a couple of times now, so it's probably just going to sound like I'm sucking up, but how fortunate and how lucky are we to have such an incredible executive team sacrifice their time and share with us once a month. It's an incredible opportunity, and you don't hear that a lot. In fact, I was chatting with a friend today, explaining my day and what I'm doing tonight, and they were just blown away that not only our CEO, but our founder and our president give so much of their time. Today, for example, Chuck was in a meeting, we were in a meeting, an 8-hour meeting looking at 2020 planning. And those meetings they're pretty long and they take a lot out of you. And he's just all smiles when I thanked him for joining tonight. So again, I would like to turn the time over to Chuck here. And again, Chuck, thank you so much. Can you hear me?
I can, Corey. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can. And we can go ahead and change over so we can see your beautiful face, and I'll get rid of mine here.
Well, hopefully you can see me. Just bear with me here. I'm going to share my screen.
And we can see you great as well, Chuck.
Great.
Thank you for your time tonight.
Oh, you got my pleasure. Thank you, Corey, for that introduction. And thanks everyone for taking some time to be on the call tonight. It's a privilege and an honor for us to be able to spend a few minutes with you this evening. I am going to ask you, just so you can prepare, we're going to take a little bit of a survey here in a few minutes. So if you're on the call and you have something within reach that you can take notes on, we're going to just fill out a little questionnaire. And it's important that you have the numbering down, because there's a process we're going to go through and we score this particular questionnaire. If you're driving in your car, please do not participate. We don't want to cause any accidents. But what I'd like to talk to you about tonight is the relationship that we all have with success. And I know that that actually probably sounds like a curious concept, because success is something that I think is innate and born into each one of us. As you can see the title there, it's my comments tonight are geared around this: are you afraid of success? Or in other words, do you suffer from the Jonah complex? The Jonah complex is a term that was coined by Abraham Maslow. And it's in reference to an account in the Christian Bible, in the Old Testament. And everybody can relax. I'm not going to give a religious presentation here, but I am going to reference this account as Maslow did as the basis for what we're going to talk about. And many of you may be familiar with the account of Jonah, Jonah and the fish, or Jonah and the whale. And it's an account of an individual by the name of Jonah who was commanded to go to a particular area and talk to some people that he didn't necessarily, a place he didn't necessarily want to go, and to talk to people he didn't necessarily want to talk to. And so instead of going where he was told to go, he hopped on a ship and tried to escape. And what happened is there was a terrible storm. Jonah realized that this storm was because of him disobeying, and he told the people on the boat to throw him overboard, and the storm would subside. And they were reluctant to do this, but ultimately they did throw him overboard, and the storm went away, and he was swallowed by a fish. And he was in that fish for 3 days, and then he was let out onto dry land, and he went on to the city of Nineveh, and ultimately completed his assignment, his mission. And Maslow actually uses this term, the Jonah complex, to describe many of us. And he uses it within the context of running away from our own destiny, if you will. And let me share with you something that Maslow actually talked about. He says, certainly, this is Maslow speaking. Most of you, I'm sure, are aware that Dr. Abraham Maslow was a very influential psychologist in the early 1900s. He's best known for Maslow's hierarchy of need. But he started actually later on in his career and in his writings, he started contemplating that once our basic needs are actually met, what is it that drives us? And you can see the quote here on your screen. He says, certainly everybody in this room would like to be better than they are. We have, all of us, an impulse to improve ourselves, an impulse towards actualizing more of our potentialities, towards self-actualization, or full humanness, or human fulfillment, or whatever term you like. He goes on to say, granted this for everybody here, then what holds us up? What blocks us? Meaning, what is it that keeps us from becoming all that we can be, towards this concept of self-actualization, towards realizing more of our potential? And he goes on to introduce this concept, and he says, one such defense against growth that I would like to speak about, especially because it has not been noticed much, I shall call the Jonah complex, and hence the relation of the story about Jonah. And the concept being is the running away, or the resistance of our destiny, of our greatness, of fulfilling what our destiny is and what we can actually accomplish. I wanted to share, and this is where if you've got something to take notes on, we're going to go through 16 questions. And the intent of this exercise is to try to gauge what our relationship is with success. And it's based on the work of Donna Canavan. She was a psychology professor at Boston College, practiced psychology for a number of years. She even wrote a textbook called The Success-Fearing Personality. That's a very sometimes strange concept for us to get our heads around, the fact that we can actually fear success. She's taught courses on this subject for a number of years, and she developed this questionnaire along with 2 other psychologists that measures a person's current association to methods and definition of success. So there's 16 questions here, and if you've got a piece of paper, just number 1 through 16, and then for every question, you're just going to simply answer yes or no. And then we're going to score it at the very end. So let's go ahead and get started. So hopefully you've got something that you can jot some notes down on. And usually your first impulse when answering questions like this is usually the correct one. There's a tendency sometimes to overanalyze answers, and we think, well, I'm different at home than I am at work. I'm different socially than I am at home. But don't try to factor all that in. Just go with what your default mechanism is, the first kind of thing that comes to mind, as in, yeah, that's me, or no, that's not me. And you'll see what I mean because the questions are straightforward. So let's go ahead and get started. So question number 1, so just write down number 1, and then you can just write Y or N or yes or no. So number 1 is, I often feel guilty about my happiness and wealth if friends are struggling. Just answer the question yes or no. Number 2, I don't always tell others about my good luck so they won't feel envious. Number 3, I have trouble saying no to people. Number 4, before getting down to work on a project, I find unrelated things to take care of first. So if that describes you, put yes. If it doesn't, say no. I tend to believe that people that look out for themselves first are selfish. Number 6, when someone I know succeeds at something, I can feel that I've failed in comparison. Number 7, I rarely have trouble concentrating for a long period of time. Number 8, when I have to ask others for help, I feel that I'm being a bother. Number 9, I often compromise in situations to avoid conflict. Number 10, when I've made a decision, I usually stick to it. Number 11, I feel self-conscious when someone who counts compliments me. Number 12, when involved in competition, I get so concerned with how well I'm doing that I don't enjoy the activity as much as I should. Number 13, a surefire way to end up disappointed is to want something too much. Number 14, instead of elation and pride, I feel let down after completing an important task or project. Number 15, mostly I find that I measure up to the standards that I set for myself. Mostly I find that I measure up to the standards that I set for myself. And the final question, number 16, is when things seem to be going really well for me, I get afraid that I'll do something to ruin it, or I fear something will happen to ruin it. So you should now have on your piece of paper there, or whatever you're taking notes on, you should have 1 through 16. and then either a yes or a no next to every one of these situations. Now, the way that we score this is, before we do anything else, circle the numbers 7, 10, and 15. Just write a circle around number 7, number 10, and number 15. And then add up 1 point for every yes except those that are circled. So if you answered yes, say for example, you answered 8 questions yes, except 7, 10, or 15, that would be 8 points. So very straightforward, just take out number 7, 10, 15, add up your yeses, and that's the number of points that you have. So I'll give everybody just a second to complete that. So now you should have a number. And then for every yes in question 7, 10, or 15, for every yes, subtract 1 point. So if you said yes on question 7, 10, and 15, you would subtract 3 points from your total score. If you just answered yes on question 10, for example, you just subtract 1 point. So let me go back just very quickly to the questions so you can review them one more time. And then again, circle numbers 7, 10, and 15. Give yourself 1 point for every yes, except those 3 that are circled. And then subtract a point for every yes that is answered in 7, 10, and 15. And that's going to give you your final score. So hopefully you guys have had an opportunity to do that. And what does your score actually mean? Well, she actually assigned, and by the way, this is not overly scientific. This is not your destiny. I'm certainly not practicing psychology without a license. This is just a simple exercise that can give us a directional heading on the nature and how we view success. So again, let's not overanalyze it. You're not destined if your score is not all that you hoped it would be. So if your score, here's what your score generally tells us. And you're the only one that knows what your score is. But your score will tell you that if it's under 5 points, meaning it's the number that you arrived at after scoring on the questionnaire, if it's under 5 points, generally it means your relationship with success is balanced. If it's between 5 and 10 points, it suggests that you're at moderate risk for self-sabotaging behavior. And that's a very important and interesting phrase, is self-sabotaging behavior. And we're going to talk more about that in a few minutes. If you have a score between 10 and 16 points, your relationship with success is possibly out of balance. And at times, the fear and confusion will be overwhelming from time to time. And perhaps some of you can identify with what that actually means. So the broader question that we ask ourselves in this situation is, why on earth would someone fear success? On its surface, it seems like an irrational fear, given that supposedly is what we all work so hard for, is success. And why would someone actually be afraid of it? Well, one of the reasons in and of itself is that change itself is scary. Change represents something different than what is currently happening. And so it's thereby unknown. And anything that's unknown can be disquieting or disconcerting. So that's one possible reason why someone would potentially fear success. Another reason is that people expect you to do it again because you've demonstrated an ability to do it. It's very much we live in a what have you done for me lately type of world, and people will expect you to do it again. And you've raised the bar on your performance level. You know it, others around you know it, and that can be sometimes a little daunting to live up to. You'll certainly get more attention from people, and while that may be a very good thing for some people, there are other personalities out there who aren't actually interested in getting more attention from people. So it can certainly put people out of their comfort zone. It is possible that your private life may suffer. You may have to give some aspects of your private life that are important to you. That may or may not be the case, but it is certainly a potentiality. You question your own abilities as if you can do it again. And that goes in largely to number 2 as well, and that people will expect it of you, and you may question your own ability at certain times and your ability to perform and succeed at that level again. Certainly there will be more time demands placed on you because successful people are always in high demand. And it's the old concept, if you want to get something done, give it to a busy person, because they have a tendency to get things done and to be performance driven. Some other reasons why people might fear success is that someone, they'll expect you to be a certain way, whatever that way is or however we interpret it. Other people may perceive you as having changed as a result of finding success in different aspects of your life. And keep in mind that I'm not placing a value on what success is. We all have different measures. We all have different expectations for ourselves. I'm not talking about success in any particular aspect. I'm talking more about generally a success as it relates to life. And you are the only one that can actually define what that looks like for you. So when we talk about success, we're not just talking about one key on the piano. We're talking about a very broad spectrum. And now there may be areas that you certainly want to hone in on or zero in on. But again, the term success is very broad and is subject to interpretation. And that's the great thing about this, is that you can interpret it however you wish. Another reason why someone might fear success is it's harder to stay at the top than to get there. So this concept that the questionnaire addressed, are you worried about being able to sustain something? And that really is one of the key metrics of successful people, is that they are able to sustain it and do it day in and day out, over and over again. You may feel like you make enemies when you perform higher than them. Enemy may be a bit of a strong word, but you may create jealousy or envy in other people, which may be something that you would be uncomfortable with. Being a success can limit you. Now that may be counterintuitive, but let me use an extreme example. Think of someone who has, and let's just use celebrity as an example. When people reach a certain level of stardom or fame, their life is altered because they can't do some of the things. Just going out in public can be a very burdensome task for somebody who's easily recognizable and identifiable. If you've ever seen a famous person in a restaurant or in a social setting, they're constantly being approached and asked for autographs or pictures. So there are limits that success can actually bring with it. And being successful can actually change your self-image. You may think that if you succeed, then you will have a different perception of yourself. You may be afraid that other people will view you differently. So these are all reasons why this concept of being a success-fearing personality can come into play. And staying along the lines of what Maslow taught, he had made some very interesting observations. And I'm quoting him here. He says, "I had at first labeled this defense the fear of one's own greatness." And I love that concept, the fear of one's own greatness, or the evasion of one's destiny, or the running away from one's own best talent. I had wanted to stress as bluntly and sharply as I could the point that we fear our best as well as our worst, even though in different ways. And what was fascinating to me about this concept and the way he phrased it is that We all fear failure. That's very intuitive. People fear failure. They fear the things that are associated with failure. And we could make a list very easily of all the reasons why we fear our worst or why we fear not being our best self. But we rarely ever talk about this concept of evading our own destiny or fearing our own greatness. But it's a very real thing, and it's something that if you haven't necessarily encountered in yourself, you have certainly encountered it in other people. And we have these fears of being our best as well as our worst in different ways. He goes on to say, Maslow does, it is certainly possible for most of us to be greater than we are in actuality. We all have unused potentialities or not fully developed ones. So often we run away from the responsibilities dictated or rather suggested by nature, by fate, even sometimes by accident. You may have observed this and not necessarily appreciated what was actually happening, but there is this concept of self-sabotaging behavior. And it's the concept that people, because of this, what they may not even understand is a fear of success. People will self-sabotage just at the moment that they are within reach of a goal or within reach of an objective or something that they've been working hard towards. At the end, before it's actually seen through to completion or fruition, they will do something that will sabotage it. When usually they're so close to the goal or to the outcome. And as you think about that and as you observe that possibly, maybe even in yourself at times, certainly with members of your team, understanding that behavior and helping to develop and have an appreciation for success can be very, very helpful as we're honest with ourselves in terms of what our motivations are and in terms of what a successful life and success actually looks like for us. So again, he says, so often we run away from the responsibilities dictated by nature, by fate, even sometimes by accident. He goes on to say that we fear our highest possibilities as well as our lowest ones. We are generally afraid to become that which we can glimpse in our most perfect moments, under the most perfect conditions, under conditions of greatest courage. And if you think back in your life, there are these moments, and they're rare. Certainly in my case, they're rare, but they are undeniable, where we have moments of absolute clarity, when everything for a brief moment comes into focus. And we glimpse, as he says here, we glimpse in our most perfect moments, under the perfect conditions, under conditions of greatest courage, we glimpse our possibility and what we can become. He goes on to say there that we enjoy and even thrill to the godlike possibilities we see in ourselves in such peak moments. And yet, we simultaneously shiver with weakness, awe, and fear before these same possibilities. As human beings, we are studies in contradictions and in contrast. And what Maslow is pointing out here is that our ability for greatness, our ability to glimpse what we can be, all that we can be, is only equal to the moments that we, as he says here, we simultaneously shiver with weakness, awe, and fear before these same possibilities. So it's only by the experiencing of the opposites of these things that we can glimpse who we are. And as I mentioned, those moments are rare, but they're undeniable when we have these moments of clarity. One of the ways that self-sabotaging or this unhealthy relationship with success, one of the ways that it rears its head, and one of the easily recognizable conditions of this is this concept, which we're all familiar with, of procrastination. And Dr. Dennis Waitley, I thought said it well. He said, procrastination is the fear of success. People procrastinate because they are afraid of the success that they know will result if they move ahead now. Because success is heavy, carries a responsibility with it. It is much easier to procrastinate and live on the someday I'll philosophy. And if you think about that in terms of team members who may have the perfect prospect, but they put off calling them for any myriad of reasons. There's always a reason to use the someday I'll do X, Y, or Z. And procrastination is a manifestation of this fear. And it's one of the ways that we self-sabotage each other. One of the great quotes I heard about procrastination is, if your job is to eat a live toad every day, don't stare at it too long. Do it first thing and get it over with. And every aspect of our lives have parts of it that we enjoy and parts that we don't necessarily enjoy as much. Procrastination can actually be, if unchecked, can be a very debilitating condition, and can certainly be a barrier to our own success. And then to address this concept of change. When fear of success is due to an unwillingness to put up with the discomfort of change, the answer is to understand that things are going to change anyway. The irony is that it is usually when people remain in their comfort zone that they suffer the most discomfort. All those regrets and thoughts about how things could have been. And what a profound observation, in that the best way is, as Vertus is often known to quote Steve Jobs, the best way to predict the future is to create it, and to take responsibility for our own outcomes. You'll notice that many of some of the most successful people that you know in your life very seldom, if ever, make excuses. They don't blame exterior factors for their outcomes. They don't blame circumstances. They don't blame the hand that they've been dealt. Successful people, they power through all those things and develop the habits that successful people actually develop. Sorry about that. My timer on my light went out in my office, so I had to go over and turn it back on. Sorry about that. There's a saying that, as it relates to change, and change avoidance is simply avoiding, many times, doing things that are unknown, but also doing things that we don't like to do. And you may be astounded when you think about this, but for many people, it's easier to adjust themselves to the outcome of earning a poor living than it is to adjust themselves to the outcomes of earning a better one. Meaning that people will go through untold hardship and difficulty simply to avoid doing things that they don't like to do, simply to avoid things changing. But we all know that change is inevitable. And as we embrace change, as we embrace new ways of doing things, as we learn new things, our potential is unlocked and revealed. And to sum it up, Maslow said, if you plan on being anything less than you are capable of being, you will probably be unhappy all the days of your life, which indicates that there is a direct correlation between our happiness and our willingness to become all that we can become. to be all that we can be, and to not only do that for ourselves, but to do that with everyone around us by picking others up, by helping other people change as is necessary, and sharing of your gifts and talents. You will in a real way be becoming all that you can be. And happiness is largely dependent on not in the absence of challenges or not in the absence of difficulty or trial, but it's in the overcoming and in the facing of those obstacles and those fears that we can actually become all that we can become and actually experience true happiness and true joy in this life. And if we plan on doing anything other than that, on being all that we can be, as Maslow said here, unhappiness will be one of the conditions that we experience because of that. So that's the message that I wanted to share with you, is just to create an opportunity for you to reflect and to think on your motivation. And again, whatever success means to you, that's the filter that you should apply to this. And you will find that in the tackling of our fears head on, we can find enormous confidence and be the person for other people that is inspiring them to embrace success, to embrace all that they can be in life. And that's one of the greatest joys and ultimately a very fulfilling thing. And you as professional network marketers, know that there is no greater satisfaction than seeing other people succeed. That's one of the wonderful and remarkable things about this industry is we see firsthand, we have a front row seat to seeing other people achieve more, to become more, and to fulfill their complete potential. So thanks again, everyone, for being with us tonight, for spending some of your valuable time. We appreciate all you do. We're deeply grateful. As Corey said, we are deep in the process of planning for 2020, and 2019 will prove to be another historic year for ASEA, and that's only possible because of the tremendous efforts and dedication of folks like you on this call. So thanks again. Look forward to seeing you all. Thanks so much. Have a great night.